Welcome, everyone. My name is Martha Parham. I'm the Senior Vice President of Public Relations for AACC, and we are very excited to have you here today. As you know, as VFA users, we are here to talk about the VFA. I am joined by my colleague Kent Philippi. But I really wanted to start off by saying thank you to those of you that use the VFA. And because of you, we are able to successfully kind of land on the proper metrics for the nation's community colleges. And so with that, we will be kind of advancing our work with the VFA metrics to next levels of advocacy at the federal and the state levels to ensure that our VFA metrics are what count when it comes to community colleges in the federal and state data sets. So we are very excited to kind of take this to the next level. But we are also understand that that's going to require a transition as we need to refocus. So with that, I will introduce my colleague, someone you know very well, Kent Philippi, who is our Vice President of Research and is certainly responsible for all things VFA. He's going to talk a little bit about the transition and how we are committed to ensuring that all of our users are as seamlessly as possible transition to any new system. So Kent, I hand it over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Parham. It's a pleasure to be here today with everybody. Today, we're going to walk through what's going to be happening going forward with the voluntary framework of accountability. As you're all aware, it really has been the principal accountability framework for community colleges, and it was really developed to measure success and progress, and a tool for community colleges to really understand what's going on with their institutions. And we're very proud of the work that we put into that and where we're going through. So I'm going to talk a little bit about a little bit of history of it, a little about the next steps going forward and how we're going to do that, as well as some showing you a few things that are going forward. So we will have some more communication going out of this in the near future. We wanted to get this out to you as soon as we could because we think it's important to know what's going on, what's happening for this collection cycle. So as you're aware, the VFA really did create the right set of measures for community colleges. We had a group of community college professionals that came together, discussed what the right measures are, and that was really important for us to develop the correct measures and metrics for the voluntary framework of accountability, and that's what we did with this. And we also really worked through the data and elements and metrics going over time to make sure we change and make sure we modify them to make them the most appropriate for community colleges as possible, trying to maintain the trend lines wherever possible, recognizing that some things needed to be clarified and improved. And we did that as we went along. And it's been very important for driving conversations for federal, national, and other state level data collections and reporting and accountability metrics for community colleges. Our government advocacy team uses these to really promote as the right measures for measuring community colleges rather than the graduation rates that are currently collected or the outcome measures that are currently collected. We work very hard to try and align what's being collected with what is in the VFA. We also are very proud of the benchmarking and dashboards that we created as part of this initiative. It's a very good model of how to collect and display and show and analyze these data. And so we're very happy with what happened with that and how we did that. And as I mentioned, with bringing in new metrics and improving them, the work of the Guided Pathways Initiative really helped us learn the importance of early momentum metrics. And we really worked really hard to build those into the VFA as we went forward. So colleges were using it, have those early momentum metrics and can really identify what's happening with their colleges early on rather than those 6-year outcomes later down the road. How well are students going to be doing down the road? 6 years is a long time to wait for those outcomes. So these early momentum metrics are very important as leading indicators of where the colleges are going, and building those into the VFA has been an important part of what we did over the last 5 years of the VFA. But now is the time to transition. AACC, and first and foremost, a national advocacy organization. Our role here is to really support and drive the value of community colleges nationally and federally. And so we work really to advance the nation's community colleges on those levels. The VFA is a very important part of that, and we're very proud of what we did to accomplish those and the changes that VFA is able to produce. They drove a lot of conversation at the national level. It drove a lot of conversation on improving some of the national metrics that are collected. The outcome metrics clearly are better than the graduation rate metrics, and that was driven partly by the work of the VFA, but certainly there's a lot more work to be done there. But we're proud of what was able to be accomplished with that from the advocacy perspective. VFA really was originally conceptualized in 2008. We began developing in 2009, and the online tools were first released in 2013. So that's kind of a bit of the history of that. But I think going back to the early phases of the VFA, it's important to think about what happened in the early conversations. When we first developed the VFA, there were really two important aspects of the VFA. One of them was the metrics. What are we measuring? How do we measure what we're doing? The second one was data reporting and display tools. When we first developed the VFA, we weren't even sure we were going to develop the metrics for display and dashboarding and those sorts of things, but there was a real interest in that. And so we did invest the effort and time and work to do that. And we really created what we thought was a great set of tools for doing those sorts of things. As the national convener of community colleges, we're really proud of the fact that we can bring the people together and develop the metrics that are appropriate for community college. And that is really the strength of AACC. We continue to be the convener of the community to bring the people together, to talk about what's important for community college, how we move forward for doing that. The other part of it, though, is that technology solutions and data warehousing is not an AAC strength. AACC is not a technology organization. We're not staffed and designed to do those sorts of things. That said, we're very proud of the work and underlying technology we did for developing the VFA. And we think it's an important part of driving the work that the VFA was there. However, as we go forward, we realize there's a lot of challenges with continuing to maintain that. One of them is collecting personally identifiable information. We know the college upload that data, and it's certainly not significant amount of PII data, but there is a potential liability for that. And AACC has to look at that and think about what's going on with that. The second piece of it that's really important is technology costs continue to get increase. And technology and supporting the technology of this is an important part of what doing this is, and making sure we do it in a way that makes the most sense. Third, AACC does not have in-house technology expertise. We have some, but it's certainly not in-house expertise. We have to rely on outside experts to do that. Another challenge is that participation levels have fluctuated over the years. It rose early in the VFA, mid-VFA, but then when COVID hit, we had declining participation. We had to look at that and figure out what's going on with that, and how we can continue to maintain the support for the VFA with that fluctuating and declining role of participation. And finally, there's different national initiatives that are using separate data for doing these sorts of things. For example, Achieving the Dream is using the PDP. So we thought at this point in time, does it make sense for AACC to continue to maintain the role of a data collector and data provider? And we looked out there and said, you know what, there are some other places that are doing these sorts of work, and maybe it's time for us to partner with those organizations and make the move to doing a different way of reporting and collecting and showing the VFA. And that's where we came to the decision to moving forward of transitioning from the VFA being housed, supported, and done with AACC to being a collaboration and partnership with the National Student Clearinghouse and the Postsecondary Data Partnership. So what are some of the advantages of a transitioning? We think there's some actually real strengths for transitioning to the Postsecondary Data Partnership. First of all, National Student Clearinghouse has a lot of experience, a lot of resources and capacity for dealing with personally identifiable information, large data sets, and collecting a lot of data that can be useful for looking at the trend lines for these students as we're looking for them. And so they have a lot of existing data, and with some supplemental files from the colleges, can really do a lot of work for developing some data sets very useful and meaningful for community colleges. Part of that means that their data is more inclusive than the VFA. So with the VFA, we tried to minimize the data collection on the front end, but that means we had to limit the amount of data and reporting and tools that can be done for talking about with the VFA. One of the advantages of the PDP is they have a full year as well as fall cohort. So you can look at students that entered anytime during the year, not just during the fall, which gives a better picture of who community college students are. Second of all, there's more participating institutions in the PDP when everybody's involved in doing this, and that'll lead for better benchmarking and more institutions to benchmark against. And also, there are more data elements in the PDP than are in the VFA, and so that'll allow for different types of analysis and different types of measurements than we can get in just the VFA by itself. AACC can also then, if we transition to the PDP, devote our resources to helping to maintain the quality and of the metrics and measurements and not spend a lot of staff time and financial resources on the infrastructure. We can allow someone else to do that who's an expert at doing that. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the PDP, this is really just kind of a dashboard. I mean, a graphic that they provided to us showing you what it is. So what it is, very similar to what we do, is colleges will submit a course file and student files, but National Student Clearance already has enrollment files, so they can bring that in with that. They already have enrollment at other institutions. They can match students with your institution and other institutions. So a lot of that data that was collected by us is already existent in the National Student Clearinghouse with the other data files. Well, you see there's a plus on optional financial aid file for the PDP. That's not something AACC has done with VFA, and it's not something we look at doing. But as we go forward in the future with a partnership with Postsecondary Data Partnership, it may give us an opportunity to talk about, well, what are some other new metrics we can look at that are consistent with community colleges that can be done with that? So once that data is collected, it's combined with their other data elements, and they create two different types of outputs. One of them is analysis ready files, and the other one is the dashboards and aggregate dashboards that can be used. Those analysis ready files and dashboards are made available to all participating institutions. And then some with non-personally identifiable information are made available to third parties. So AACC, in partnership with PDP and the VFA colleges, will be able to develop some national reports on community colleges with the VFA metrics once the colleges who are participating agree to let AACC use that data. So what is the transition plan that AACC plans to do with this? Currently, we're looking at transitioning away from the VFA and decommissioning the current website on March 1st. So that means there's only about a month and a half left that we'll have the data up there on the VFA website. I know this is probably going to be coming as new news for many of you. So we're going to encourage all of the colleges to go in and download all the reports that are there and look at them and get those down now. Do your benchmarking that you want to do now and do that between now and March 1st. That said, we're going to maintain a copy of all the historical data for all the colleges who are current and past participants of the VFA, and we'll have those available for our own internal analytical purposes. In addition, AACC will be providing every college with an Excel workbook that has all the data submitted to the VFA by the college. And I know that's a lot of data, but I'm going to show you kind of what we're looking at doing with that and how you can kind of understand how that works. Let's see if I can share. Yeah. Okay. So this is an example of what the data will look like. This is VFA Community College. But what you'll see here is that basically every year's cohort will be included in the data. All the different variations on there. So for example, we look at a 2-year cohort, you'll be able to take this and very simply insert a pivot table and analyze these data. So for example, I did one of these earlier. What you can see here is for VFA Community College, I can look at all students, the main cohort, the 6-year cohort for 2024 with all the disaggregations for fall retention to next term, fall credit retention, fall to next term retention, and credit threshold rates. But very easily, if I wanted to change this to looking at by year, we can take the collection year description, move it down here, and get rid of all the extra students and do the all student description and say include all students in cohort. And now I have the 6-year trend for the data. So we've tried to make this as simple as possible for users to use these data. We'll be creating some webinars and tools for showing you how to use these data, but these data will be available for every college, and all the data they submitted historically will be available in these files. So for the 2025 collection cycle, a little more information on what we're doing. AACC has received funding from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to help support the transition from AACC collecting and reporting the data to the PDP. So we're going to use some of those funds for a variety of different purposes, and I'm going to walk through what some of those supports we're going to be doing for the colleges we're participating. So the 2025 cycle, the PDP will be the collection cycle for the tool for the VFA. We will no longer be collecting it through the AACC-driven website. We are working with PDP to develop a roadmap for providing the VFA metrics to participating colleges. So as we go forward, we're going to be rolling in the VFA metrics into the PDP in a way that is useful for the colleges to understand what's happening. In order to do this, we know there'll be some substantial work up front for colleges to submit the data in. So we're working with partner ResearchEd to develop tools for doing some of that work. That'll include helping the colleges create and upload the PDP reporting process, but also the ability for colleges to use some of the PDP data files that are going to be created for them, including the analysis ready files and things like that. And we'll be talking a little bit more about that a little later in this presentation. The other thing that's important to note is that the cost for the PDP is different than the cost for the VFA. And we have worked with Gates to create some stipends for current VFA users to be able to participate in the PDP at a discounted rate for this coming year. And we'll provide more information on how that works and how to do that as the months go forward, as the weeks go forward, and how we're doing that. But we just wanted to let you know that we do know that this is a change in processes, a change in costs. We want to minimize that challenge for the colleges for doing this as we go forward. So we will have a post-secondary data partnership designated point person for all VFA colleges we're participating. They will help with the transition as well as the ResearchEd people, and they will be up to speed on what the VFA metrics are and how the VFA definitions are used so they can help colleges filter the data to be more consistent with how we have done these things in the past. We're going to also continue to work with the colleges from AACC. We'll continue to be a partner with our VFA colleges, as well as the contact for the PDP. We're going to be working to integrate VFA metrics into the PDP, and as they become available in the PDP, make them available to all VFA colleges. We're also going to create a crosswalk of the VFA metrics and disaggregations to help understand what was in the VFA, what is in the PDP, and what is in the PDP that's not quite the same, so that when you're looking at it and losing the data, you understand those nuances and differences as you're going forward. So I mentioned earlier that the PDP has two different components. The first component really is their dashboards. The dashboards are designed for looking at a lot of different KPIs and metrics. Like the VFA, they're aggregate data. They're data that has been aggregated based on the different types of data you're looking at. But basically, you can look at them, you can filter on them, you can do some disaggregations on them, you can look at it different ways, but they're really basically online dashboards. Right now, they have 11 different KPI-focused dashboards. and you can share them with broadly and widely. We'll talk about a new one that they're developing as well in a little bit. The other thing that they create are analysis-ready files, and these are very similar to the derived cohort files that AACC produces as part of the VFA. And those are student-level files that go back to the institution with a student-level identifier included in them. That'll allow the colleges to do analysis with these data at their own institution in much more nuanced and sophisticated ways than what they are able to do with just the dashboards. They do not include clearly all data elements that are included in the PDP data collection, but it's a wide range of them. And all the ones that are, most of them that are important for looking at that are going to be in there. So I'm going to talk a little bit now about what we currently see as being available in the PDP for VFA metrics going forward. And as I mentioned before, there are both the dashboards and the analysis ready file. The dashboards are really easy to use and ready to use. The analysis ready files, we are planning to work with Research Ed to help colleges develop some tools for analyzing those data in a way that makes sense for them. And as we go forward with that, we'll be bringing out more details on how that will work and what those areas will be. But as I mentioned, a lot of metrics already exist in the PDB dashboards and are ready to go out of the gate. Most of the disaggregations that VFA uses are in the PDP. Many of the metrics can be calculated using analysis-ready files if they're not in the dashboards. Some of the data elements are going to be similar to the VFA, but they're not going to be the same because their operational definition is slightly different. And as I mentioned earlier, that crosswalk will be important for understanding those differences. And if you're trying to interpret trend lines and things like that, you'll be able to understand what those are. So to give you a sense of what is currently in the PDP and what is not, I look first at the cohorts and disaggregations. What you can see is the main cohort is already in use for the dashboards that have these data elements. They also have the first time in college cohort available. Now, what's nice about this, as I mentioned earlier, you can do a main cohort of fall entering students, but you can also broaden that with these data to include students who entered any time during the academic year. So you can do all entering students during an academic year rather than just the fall. So it gives you actually more data to look at when you're doing those sorts of things. It'll be important when you're looking at things like fall and next term retention, how they define that, but certainly that's a very useful tool to have as you're going forward. First time in college cohort is also available through that. What's not available based on the ACC definition in the dashboards is what we would call the credential seeking cohort. Now that can be done with the analysis ready file to develop a way of looking at that with a combination of the student level files and the course level files, but it will be a little more difficult to define a credential seeking cohort, but it can be done with the analysis ready files currently. With the disaggregations, gender, race, ethnicity, and attendance status first term are all existing in the dashboards now, and therefore can also be done in the analysis ready files. The age is similar, but not quite the same because they don't have the disaggregation of the top two age groups that we have, but that's something we think we'll be able to develop in the new analysis ready files. Individual institutions can do that because they have age at entry, so they'll be able to develop that in that. But when they're sharing those data files with third parties like AACC, it won't be existing. So that's why it's not checkmark here, but college will be able to do that. The Pell status they have is only in Pell in first term, rather our definition of Pell at any time. That's something that they are aware of and looking at and may develop in the future, but it's not currently available. And then finally, college ready is a different definition than what we use, but you can look at college ready, and that'll be important to know the differences there. So what are the data that are available? So let's look first at the KPIs. Gateway course completion year one will be in there. Gateway completed math, gateway completed English, English and math will be available. Credit completion rate in the first year will be available. Fall to next term retention rate will be available in the dashboards. 2-year progress and success metrics, fall to next term, which is also a KPI, will be in there. Completed a credential will be in there. Still enrolled at the end of the time period will be there. Transfer will be in there, but it's a different definition, and we're working with them on that. But that's a challenge because they tend to look at transfer success rather than any transfer. But that said, as we look at these new metrics, we will be able to develop some metrics about not just transfer, but success post-transfer with these students, which is something that we've always looked at developing for the VFA. And so while the transfer will be a little bit different definition, we have an ability to actually expand the way we look at these data going forward. So I want to show you basically one of their dashboards here, which is first year credit completion rate, which is one of the KPIs we talked about. And as you can see here, they provide a real lot of data in here. This is one of the earlier style dashboards. They're actually transitioning into different style of dashboards, but this kind of gives you a sense of all the data that are on there. So as you can see, you can do a dimension, what they call a dimension, which would be our disaggregation, which is this here is race ethnicity. Then you have the different types of cohorts, enrollment types along the top you can do for disaggregation, as well as things like whether the English prep, math prep, GPA. So a lot of more filters that you can have up here that you don't necessarily have in the VFA. So it gives you similar data that we already have, but an ability to actually drill down and look at it in different ways. And so the next slide is really kind of taking this little graphic up here and showing you a little more detail what that looks like. So you see here is you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 terms worth of data. Black, African American, Hispanic, and white trend over time. So this is a really rich source of data and showing you the trend lines for these students and what's going on with those students. They also available in 2025 are the 6-year outcomes, the VFA 6-year outcomes. All outcomes will be available. Developmental education, it's going to be a slightly different definition of developmental need, but we'll have English, math, and they're expanding it now, developing a new one for which will be available this year, English or math, so any developmental need. They don't have developmental reading in their data collection, so that's one thing that will not be in going forward. But they will be able to determine whether they came college ready in the subject and whether they completed a gateway course in the subject. And those will all be available in the dashboards as we go forward. And this is a mock-up of their new 6-year outcomes that they're developing for us. And these are basically, you'll recognize these all as the VFA 6-year outcomes. And like the other ones, they'll be able to have filters and dimensions that you can look at for looking at these data based on what's underlying data for these dashboards. So once again, this shows you the outcomes, bachelor's, transfers, associated with transfer, without transfer, certificate with or without transfer, not enrolled, enrolled in less than 30 credits, still enrolled. So we're excited about the fact that one of the things we'll have available this first year is the core 6-year outcomes as a new dashboard that the Postsecondary data partnership will include in their resources. So there were a number of the KPIs and other metrics that were not in the dashboards currently. And these include the KPIs, which are the earned 6 credits first term, 12 credits first term, 15, 24, 30 credits in the first year. Those will not be in the dashboards going in 2025, but these are able to be calculated and developed using the analysis ready files. They have all the data necessary for doing those things. They also have the ability to calculate the reach credit threshold. They do have a dashboard with credit success rates, the challenge and thresholds, but the definition there is slightly different. So if we want to use the same credit thresholds we've had historically, we would have to do it through the analysis ready file. However, there is a way of doing that in the dashboards currently that doesn't map onto the AACC defined credit thresholds at the end of year 1 or year 2, I'm sorry. You can also develop a measure of no success in the first term, which is not in any of the dashboards either. So currently in the analysis ready dashboards, they do not have certificate and associate degree separately reported for outcomes, but that is something they're working on, will have available in the 2025 year. So what are the next steps? AACC is planning to reach out to all 2024 VFA colleges in the near future with next steps for transitioning to the PDP. We're working on the final documentation and everything. We don't want to get too far in front of ourselves, but we do want to make sure that you know what's going on and what the process for doing that will be. You'll sign up if you want to take advantage of the discounted pricing, what you'll need to for doing that, all those sorts of things. We'll also be providing a link for the colleges to download your historical data. Those files have already been created, but we're going to create a source for doing that and a place for you to do that. We're also developing resources to help the colleges for transitioning to inputting the PDP data, for using the PDP dashboards, and using the analysis-ready files. In the near future, we'll be announcing another webinar that we're doing with PDP staff to introduce you to them and talk more about the process for going forward. So I know we went through this, a lot of this really fast, and a lot of this is new. We know this is going to be a challenge for you, and it's going to be a big change for the way we do the VFA, but we're really excited about the fact that this is going to be a really good opportunity to get better data, more data, and really take advantage of some of the strengths that are already built into the large data sets that the PDP has and leverage that for using with the VFA. So I'm going to stop there. I think we have some comments or chats. If anybody has some questions, I'll try to answer them now. I'm not sure how many I'll be able to answer, but I'm happy to do that. So Casey asked, our institution is not participating. Can you speak to what developmental education metrics are in the PDP? These are foundational or institutional KPIs and benchmarking. So as I mentioned before, they currently have the ability to look at the students who are referred to developmental education and whether they became college ready and whether they were successful in the college gatekeeper course. So JD Mathewson asked, are you saying the data available in the analysis ready file will continue to be available after the future uploads to PDP? What I'm saying is that we will not make available the derived file that AACC creates, if that's what you're talking about. Those are one-time creations and they will not be able to be produced once we take down the VFA website. The data we'll be supplying to all the colleges are the aggregate data that is shown used for doing the analysis. The PDP analysis ready files will be available for all colleges going forward who participate in the PDP. Another question, our state participates in PDP and submits data on our behalf. Do we need to submit anything additional or just typical PDP submission for 2025? The VFA participation in the PDP does not include any extra elements than what are submitted for the PDP. So if you're already working using the PDP, then you will not need to add any new data elements than what is already submitted to the information. Can we also get a download of the benchmarking data? The challenge with downloading the benchmarking data is that those are usually unique to your institution. So you selected the benchmark institutions that you want, then you won't be able to do that. That said, if you go into the VFA now, between now and March 1st, you can certainly create your files and click on the download the Excel files for the benchmarking data, and you can do that. So that'll be available certainly until we decommission the website. Another question. Pardon me, I don't know what happened there.
But anyway, I think there's just a whole lot of volume in there. Yeah. So and I have enough, I, I've done my background there. I pulled off on reviewing.
My apologies, people. Oh, there we go. Okay. So question, will participating colleges still be submitting data? The answer to that is colleges who want to participate in the VFA through the PDP will need to submit their data through the Postsecondary Data Partnership, through the National Student Clearinghouse. Will the colleges be submitting data files, or will the new dashboards, et cetera, run off we already submitted for via NSC files? So we do not have the ability to transmit the data we collected for the VFA to the National Student Clearinghouse. The challenge with that is National Student Clearinghouse runs off of student level data, and we do not have that student level data here at AACC anymore. And so any transmission of the existing data to the PDP, National Student Clearinghouse, will not happen. That'll have to be done with the first time you submit data to the National Student Clearinghouse. And so that's what will happen there. Is centralized reporting available for PDP, or is it only available for individual colleges? Yes, the PDP does have the ability to take data from state level systems. And so if that's something that colleges want to do, that will be made available. The specs, we'll be sending out the PDP specs for uploading in the near future, but those will be available. If you go to their website, you can actually find them looking at the knowledge section, but we'll be sending those out as well. So to clarify, yes, we will not be collecting data. Going forward for the 2025 cycle, data will not be collected by AACC in the VFA system. In order to participate in the VFA going forward, you'll need to fully participate in the Postsecondary Data Partnership and their process for collecting and submitting data. It'll be independent of the way you were doing things historically. It will no longer be collected by AACC. It'll be a different data collection through the PDP data system. Any other questions at this time? So keep an eye out in the near future. We'll be sending this out. We have recorded this webinar, and we will be making this available if you want to come back and review it or share it with others. And we'll be sending this to other people who are participating in the VFA as well. Certainly any questions, comments, thoughts can be directed back to me or the VFA inbox, and we'll respond to those as they come in. So we thank you for your time today. One other thing that we will be doing is, because we have this great set of data we've collected over the years, we'll be creating a report to celebrate all the data and share the data that we have. The trend lines for the VFA really suggest the strength of our community colleges and how much they've been accomplishing and improving on their outcomes. And certainly the data reflects some of the challenges that our colleges went through the COVID. By releasing a national report, we think we can shine the light on the value of what community colleges are doing and how well they're doing for working with their students. And that we look to produce and release sometime this spring. We will also have a session at the American Association of Community Colleges talking about this. As we move forward, we're going to look with other colleges and other groups who are participating in the Postsecondary Data Partnership as well, and leverage the work that they have. So for example, we know a lot of colleges who are involved with Achieving the Dream use the Postsecondary Data Partnership. we want to work with Achieving the Dream as well, and drive the conversation with the clearinghouse to make sure that they continue to measure the metrics that are right for the community colleges. And that's why we think partnering with the VFA allows the ability to really improve the metrics and measures that they provide for community colleges for looking at themselves. Is there different costs? Yes, there's a different cost for participating in the VFA versus the PDP. Oh, the PDP cost is the PDP cost. The VFA colleges will just be a separate group of students of institutions participating in the PDP using the regular PDP costs. The VFA PDP collection cycle, that's not finalized yet, but we're looking at a 25-25 calendar year. And so the data collection cycle for that is not finalized yet. So I can't answer that specifically, but you should have a reasonable amount of time, probably through the end of the summer at least, to get that data in to use it for the VFA, for the PDP system. So cost information is available on the Postsecondary Data Partnership website. Our goal is for the first year to make the cost basically the same as participating in the VFA for VFA participating colleges. And then we'll look to see how many colleges are taking advantage of that and how much we can support going forward in the future years. But certainly the first year, we want to make sure that that cost is relatively similar to what you're doing right now. But we'll have those details sent out in the near future. Well, seeing no other questions at this point, I want to thank you for your time, and we do appreciate your listening into this, and we understand that this is going to be a big transition for all the colleges who are participating in. We will work very hard to minimize the challenges that you go through as we go forward with this. And thank you, and have a good day.